Hello and welcome, I'm Raziel, and so today, as part of the Getting Started a month, which is almost over now, I want to talk about your second army. So you've built and played your first army. It may be still a lot of grade left, you haven't completely painted it yet, but you thought, you know what, this army has hit its 2,000 point mark, I'm going to move on to my next army. And you're thinking, what could you do? Now, usually what I do is any army I do, once I've finished an army, I always try and make sure the new army kind of counters the previous army. And remember, I have been doing this for 30 years, so I may have some armies which basically work the same because it's countered the army before. Not always, but sometimes. And this is just the way I think it's the best way to do. Because with this, you are learning how to play your first army better by knowing what it's weak against. And you can see, okay, I have a fast army, it's a glass cannon army. What would be good against that? That would be a lot of infantry with bolters or simple guns, basically. It's a glass cannon army, so you take more infantry, which means it kind of takes away a lot of the massive explosions that will wipe out big things like tanks and vehicles. And if it hits a unit, you're going to lose a couple of models at best, rather than sort of, whole units or vehicles. So you kind of have to counteract it. Then you sort of think, okay, I know which way I want to go. And the first thing is, you have these keywords with certain games where you can use allies, such as bolt action. If you're doing like the D-Day landings, you can have some English Brits in there as well as Americans. And you're thinking, you know what, I'm going to do an Axis or Allies army, so I'm going to go from Brits, and I'm going to also do Americans and French. And so you build this second army at the same time you're actually expanding your first army. This is one thing Games Workshop did well with certain editions, like having the Imperium, Aldari, Tyranid keywords, whereas you could build a big Imperial army and you could have Space Marines, Imperial Guard, Grey Knights, Imperial Knights, and you could say, actually, in a game of Apocalypse, this is just one big army, whereas in smaller games you can just take certain sections of it. Again, this kind of helps you play the game a little bit better because you're learning more about the lore and the history that goes with the game, with that new faction, as well as learning how different units work. So these are the sort of things that go through my mind when I choose a new army. And then when it actually comes to buying your new army, I wouldn't all say go straight away with a starting army or a mega force or a combat patrol box. Start with a single unit, just that one unit. And the reason to doing this is a lot of games have a robust rule set where you can use them as a warbat, as a skirmish game. You don't actually have to have the big games. You can have this little game, which works quite well. And if they don't, they tend to have a rule set or a game system that works as a skirmish game. Kill Team and Conquest First Blood come into mind here. So you learn how to build these and play them in a much smaller way. And you can go, do you know what? I actually quite like how I built and painted these. These were kind of fun, they were enjoyable, and I actually like this. Or being it only for one box, you go, do you know what? I didn't enjoy building them. I don't like the way they play. This doesn't suit me at all. And you can and it's just one box. Then you can have the idea that you haven't spent that much on your new army, but you have a good idea on how it works at a very, very basic foundation. So then you choose the next one, and once, let's say you've chosen, you said, like, I've got this box, I've built it, I've painted it, I've used it in a small game, I enjoyed it, I thought it was a lot of fun to use, I really enjoyed painting them, I really enjoyed building them. So let's expand that. That's when I would go for a combat patrol starter set, or any way which gets you a fair few models straight away. And then when you have that afterwards, you've got this nice bit of momentum going, and you're going, do you know what, I really enjoyed painting these, and then you have a lot more, and you're going, do you know what, I'm going to enjoy building these now. And a lot of these starter sets, for let's say bolt action, which is great. You have things like vehicles and other ways of building your models as well. So you're adding to your army not just by having more infantry, you're having more vehicles, and you can kind of know where you want to go and how it can counter your previous army. And it's just, like I said, it kind of really gets you better. And this is one of the things about doing a second army, which is always set a point limit on how big you want your army to be. You may say 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. This is my point limit. And this helps you maintain a budget when buying anything, because you can go, right, I finished my first army, I'm building my second army, it's a 2,000 point limit, but you know what, I can buy a couple of boxes for this army and I want this new one for the previous army. And so you can still expand the previous army, but it helps you keep this budget in mind because you have this cut-off point which you want to go to. And as I was saying, starter sets is probably the next step, because you want to get more models and you can sort of have a real good feeling on how the army works and builds and play on a bigger scale. Like I said, you've enjoyed the first box, it was fun, and now you want to try it on a bigger scale. And then you sit there, you paint and build these. And then you find out you're slowly getting better, because now you're learning new painting techniques as well with different colours. You might have had a very dark army to begin with, something which is full of black and real dark colours. And now you've got to go something different. You're going to be learning new colour schemes and new ways of painting these new models. Such as if you go, let's think, with Conquest, I'm starting with the Spires. I'm hoping to go to 100 Kingdoms. So I'm going from a lot of bone, which is white, obviously, to a lot of more metal and cloth. So I'm going to have to adapt my painting skills, which are for Conquest models, from the Spires to something different. And this is one of the good things about starting a second army. You're always learning about new painting schemes and how different things work, and different, how metallics work, how washes work, all on these different colour schemes, and then how it's harder to paint a lighter coloured army, such as a yellow army, compared to a darker colour army, which might be black. And you can learn the differences there as well, and how to improve your painting on lighter colour schemes and how to layer it better. It's just a fun way to really get you into your game. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you in the next one as well, and I'll see you all again soon. Links to Wayland Games down below if you wish to save money on your Warhammer, Games Conquest, Mantic, Wild West Exodus, all of that cool things. I hope you enjoyed it. There's also Forbidden Planet for comics, DVDs, manga, merchandise, all really cool geeky stuff. There's also my merchandise, stickers, cups. All the artwork's done by me, some digital, none AI by the way. No AI is done. Same with my comics, all drawn by me by hand or pen and paper. There is also of Skyforge. Don't forget Skyforge, good friend of mine. And finally Patreon business, because business. Bye bye.